Hey friends, welcome back to Rapture and Chill. I'm Brooke, and wow, hi, you came back. Thank you so much for being here. Isn't this fun? It's like going down never-ending rabbit holes, and if you know me, you know I love a rabbit hole. Before we dive in, I want to share a couple of quick updates. First of all, thank you so much for all the love and support on the first episode. I was simultaneously stoked and terrified to put it out there, but you sweet little baby angels blew me away with your kindness. As of now, new episodes will be uploaded to YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, but I still haven't worked out an exact schedule yet. I'm going to do my best to be consistent, but please be patient with me while I learn. This is a lot of work, and I have absolutely loved doing it, but I do have a full-time job as well, and the bills got to get paid. Also, yes, the video was backwards in episode 1. I assumed ignorantly that it would be easy to figure out how to swap it after I recorded. I was wrong. I literally don't know what I'm doing. And my last note, I'm always going to add visual aids to my videos. Sometimes they'll be necessary, sometimes they'll just be for fun. But moving forward, I'll be sure to add at least the important images in an Instagram post for each episode so that the people who would rather listen than watch can still go in and reference those photos if they want to. And I recommend doing that especially for this episode because when we talk about prophecy rockin' a bit, I will 100% lose you if you can't see it. So make sure you go over to Rapture and Chill on Instagram to take a look at all of that. All right. Last time we spoke very broadly about what the awakening might mean to different religions. And today I want to go back even further to prophecies that could actually predate the whole concept of organized religion. We're going to explore how different indigenous cultures predicted the same moral dichotomy, the sort of separating and coming back together of humanity. Obviously, it's not hard to imagine how this is relevant in 2026, right? I think we're watching it happen on such an accelerated scale that it probably feels like we're getting whiplash at this point. But it does seem to me like we're coming back together finally. I really hope so. And don't get me wrong, anger is justified, but if you can dig deep and find a way to rise above the anger, there's peace up there. I promise. It doesn't mean stop believing what you believe or caring about what you care about, but we need to redirect our energy and passion. So we've got to wake up. Does this feel like a humanities class? It sort of feels like my college humanities class, but I'm just a girl with the internet now, guys. So yay, this is episode 2, Prophesaw That Coming, Ancient Indigenous Prophecies. All right, let's start with the big one. Remember back in 2012 when people were freaking out because they thought the world was going to end? Well, that's because thousands of years ago, the Maya predicted that December 21st, 2012 would be the end of a 5,125-year cycle. So naturally, we thought that meant time was going to run out that day. But there was no prophecy of the world actually coming to an end. The Maya didn't view time as linear. There was no starting point and stopping point on a timeline. Instead, they viewed it as a continuous cycle. According to Mayan prophecy, the beginning of the fourth world, or the world of corn, was August 11th, 3114 BC, and the end of the fourth world would have been December 21st, 2012. The modern interpretation of this was that there would be an actual apocalypse in 2012, but to the Maya, the end of a cycle wasn't something that scared them. It was meant to be celebrated. They believed that the universe had already been created and destroyed multiple times because the gods had tried over and over to create humans who would honor them and care for the planet, but humans didn't finally reach that level of elevated consciousness until the last cycle, the world of corn. There aren't many ancient inscriptions that have been found which actually mention the end date, but one of the most famous discoveries is known as Tortuguero Monument 6. It's a big stone slab located in Tabasco, Mexico, and it's not perfectly intact, but here's what we're told it describes. At the completion of the cycle, a god known as the God of Nine Strides, or the Nine-Footed God, would descend from the heavens to find a great celebration. Kings and priests would perform sacred rituals and dances to ensure a smooth transition so the sun would continue to rise through the end of the cycle. And because time was believed to be a living entity, the spiritual clothing of the world would be changed as the gods rewrapped time to prevent the universe from decaying. And that's not all, though. In case you weren't aware, the Maya were real big into the cosmos. There's a dark, dusty band within the Milky Way galaxy called the Great Rift. We've all seen that in pictures, and the Maya tracked this band. They referred to it as the road to the underworld, but they also viewed it as the Great Mother or the Creator. And during the zero date, they said the winter solstice sun would align in that great rift so that it would look like the sun was actually being born out of the great mother. This alignment of the sun, the source of life, with the great rift, the source of creation, would be when the creator was closest to the people. And this would be a time of maximum fertility, not just for crops, but for ideas, spirit, and the continuation of the human species. They also viewed the Milky Way as a giant ceiba tree. When this spiritual and cosmic alignment occurred, the tree would stand upright in the sky, and the straightening of the tree would allow all the different realms to connect so perfectly that energy could flow freely between the gods and humanity. The Maya didn't really spell out in detail what would happen after that transition into the fifth world or the world of movement. But with the return of ancient knowledge, it was expected that the new cycle would be a time to correct the mistakes of the previous cycle. If we are truly now in or entering into the fifth world, and we're finally starting to get humanity to reunite, that would mean that now is when we should be figuring out how to make things right with the creator. Kick that empathy into high gear. Another quick point I want to make is that the Maya, much like the Ethiopians, used a 13-month calendar. Because of the fact that we use the Gregorian calendar, which obviously has 12 months, the dates can get a little wonky. Back in 2020, which remember is when my first big spiritual shift began, I saw a video where this girl was talking about how December 21st, 2012 to the Maya would have been potentially a different date to us now because of the difference in the calendars. Is that true? I don't know, but it's interesting. It's important to note that the Maya and the Ethiopians did not use the same 13-month calendar, so they're not exactly interchangeable as far as I can tell. But go with me so you can see what made me side-eye the concept of time for the past 6 years. Since the dates on the Mayan calendar are formatted in a way that's completely foreign to me, converting the dates on that one doesn't really help, because what do you mean the date is 13.0.0.0? However, if you convert December 21st, 2012 from the Ethiopian calendar, you get December 31st, 2019 on the Gregorian calendar. Do you remember what was going on in December of 2019? COVID, just the beginnings. Now, regardless of what you think about the origins of COVID, it definitely changed the world as we previously knew it. Nothing has been the same since then. We still have no idea how it's going to affect pandemic babies in the long run because it was such an unprecedented time. And I'm not even just talking about the trauma caused by the virus itself. I mean the social impact on kids long term. It's so sad. Their childhoods were completely hijacked. So yeah, it really wouldn't take much to convince me that the world ended at the end of 2019, because I mean, it kind of did in a lot of ways. The world leaders basically proved to us that they can and will shut down the entire planet to control us. Next, we're going to talk about Prophecy Rock. And again, there is a picture of this on the Rapture and Chill Instagram page, and I highly recommend pulling that up because there's a lot to dissect here. In terms of written or recorded Indigenous prophecies, this one is probably the most well-known in North America. It's located on the Hopi Reservation in the Four Corners region of the United States, where Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah all meet. I've wanted to visit the Four Corners for so long. Have you ever read or watched anything about the energy there? It's so intriguing. If you've ever been to Sedona, I imagine the vibe is similar. The veil feels thinner there somehow, like you can feel the frequency of the earth in this really profound way. It's probably the most spiritual place I've ever been. There's a sense of connection to the universe there that seems almost tangible. It's magical. I imagine the vibe of the Four Corners is similar to that vibe in Sedona. Another interesting fact is that this region has four sacred mountains that form a boundary around the area where Prophecy Rock actually sits. It's believed by many indigenous nations that this region is a sacred library where the laws of the universe are kept safe from the outside world. Super interesting. Anyway, in Hopi tradition, there's a story of two brothers, and this is the central theme of Prophecy Rock narrative. In the story, each brother was given a sacred stone tablet by the Great Spirit. The elder brother was instructed to take his tablet and go east towards the rising sun. His mission was to develop technology, recording systems, and other inventions. So I'm picturing him as an academic or a philosopher, but I literally have no idea if that's right. Use your imagination. The younger brother was instructed to stay in the center with his tablet, or in the four corners in the west. His mission was to be a steward of the earth and preserve the spiritual and agricultural way of life. The elder brother promised that he would return from the east when the younger brother's people were being oppressed and the earth was in danger, and they would match their tablets together as proof that they were brothers. But there are two possible outcomes to their eventual reunion, and each of these potential paths is what we see outlined in Prophecy Rock. Quick side note, since this is a petroglyph, it's obviously been interpreted by many people over the years, so I'm just sharing what I found to be the most well-known interpretation from when I was researching this. Okay, so on this big chunk of sandstone, you have the upper path and the lower path. The lower path, the life plan, is the path of the one-hearted people. It's a straight line that stays close to the earth, and it continues across the rock as a symbol of eternal life and sustainability. If humanity were to take this path, it would lead to a life of harmony with the Great Spirit's instructions to the brothers. This is obviously the path you want to be on, even though it does have a series of tests along the way. The upper path, which is depicted with a zigzag at the end, is the path of the two-hearted people who live a life based on materialism, greed, and a detachment from nature. This is said to represent the civilization and colonization of the white man. Notice how the zigzag just kind of peters out. This signifies the chaos and turmoil that inevitably leads to no future at all. If the elder brother returns and the two brothers embrace, the bridge of return is activated so that the technology of the East and spirituality of the West merge. And this would lead humanity into a peaceful fifth world. However, if the elder brother has become two-hearted and either can't or won't recognize his brother, the Great Spirit will allow the great purification to happen. Previous purifications were fire, flood, etc. You know. Let's look more at these details and what they are believed to represent. So on the left, we have the Great Spirit. He appears to be holding a bow, but it's lowered to symbolize him commanding the Hopi to lay down their weapons and live in peace. Over to the right, we see a cross, which is said to represent the arrival of Christianity and Western influence. Moving over to the lower path, we have these three circles. Many Hopi elders have interpreted these as gourd rattles, which symbolize the three shakings of the earth or three world wars. I read that between each of these wars, there's actually a cornstalk, which represents a period of prosperity, but I can't really see that in these pictures. That doesn't mean they aren't there, though. Another interpretation is that there's just the one cornstalk at the end, which would symbolize the return of native wisdom and the survival of the Hopi people. Above that, on the upper path, we have several figures. One interpretation said that these three represent the three aspects of humanity that characterize the types of leaders in the fourth world before its end. The political leader who seeks power, the economic leader who seeks wealth, and the religious leader who weaponizes spirituality. America is actually super lucky because we managed to get all three characteristics in one person. But then I don't know who this fourth guy is. Maybe the elder brother, or maybe it represents the Hopi people who chose that wrong path. Another interpretation did say that they could all be representative of people who took the wrong path. So that's probably a question that we'd need to ask an actual Hopi elder, because the internet can only tell us so much. Just under that third guy, there may be another cornstalk that actually touches the line of the upper path. This is said to symbolize a last chance for salvation or redemption. If we don't get off the ride there, it gets even more gnarly as humanity sort of panics and tries to forge new paths, but by that point, it's too late. If we do course correct in time and make it onto the lower path, we'd end up like this guy, the one-hearted. This is the younger brother who stayed on the right path, remained spiritually true, and was a good steward of the land. He is the one who will lead humanity into a peaceful fifth world. And for those who stayed on the wrong path, they'll be subjected to the great purification, which we'll talk about more later. Other than the fact that the Maya and the Hopi have extremely similar prophecies for the fate of humanity, there's another major ideal that they share: the twins. Yes, of course they're twins, dude. Both have storylines about twin brothers, and they have a lot in common. According to Mayan tradition, the hero twins are masters of strategy and magic. So before the twins were born, and also, by the way, before humans were even created, the twins' father and uncle were playing their ball game so loudly that it enraged the lords of death. So they summoned the brothers to the underworld. They did a series of tests and tricks, which the brothers failed miserably, so they were promptly murdered. Later, a daughter of an underworld lord was impregnated by the magical skull of the twins' father. Apparently, the head was hanging in a tree. She walked by and it spit on her hand. And listen, honestly, at this point, I don't even need too much of an explanation. They say a magical skull impregnated the daughter of an underworld lord. I say, okay, we're learning, we're loving, we listen and we don't judge. I mean, I believe that a 16-year-old virgin was impregnated by God. So do I really have any room to say the skull story sounds wild? No. So years later, when the twins were growing up, they found their dad's sports ball equipment. And eventually, they also started playing so loudly that it pissed off the Lords of Death. And they were also summoned to the underworld. But they did not fall for the same tricks as their dad and uncle. They used wit and magic themselves. Remember their lineage, grandchildren of an underworld lord. They defeated the Lords of Death through a series of games and tests, one of which involved one twin being decapitated and the other twin magically reattaching his head. The twins' victory ultimately stripped the underworld of its power, and they were even able to bring their father back to life. He stayed by the ball court and became the maze god, like corn, not a labyrinth. The twins then rose into the sky to become the moon and the sun. And when the zero date arrives, it marks the moment in the great cycle where the twins are in perfect alignment to reset the world's energy. And if that's the case, then this reset is still happening because there's definitely no way this is what it's like when the energy has already been reset. There's no way. In Hopi tradition, the warrior twins were created by a goddess known as Spider Grandmother or Spider Woman. I know, sounds like a comic book hero, but she's not. According to many different indigenous traditions across the American Southwest, she's known as the creator of life, but she's also a teacher and a protector. She's said to have created the hero twins out of clay the same way she later created humans. The elder twin, the warrior of the north, is associated with strength, so he protects and solidifies the earth, and he's able to harness the power of storms to control different aspects of climate and weather. The younger twin, the warrior of the south, is the echo or the voice. He vibrates the Earth's axis just right, so the planet keeps spinning and is able to maintain the sound of the creator. Instead of creating rainstorms like his brother, he embodies the energy of the sun to provide warmth and growth. And the twins are stewards of nature. By the way, that part about the sound of the creator made me think of the Schumann resonance, the Earth's heartbeat. Have you heard of this? Look it up. The warrior twins are the key to the prophecy of the shift from the fourth world to the fifth. They're referred to as the guardians of the poles, which is where Spider Grandmother assigned them to go. As long as humanity stays on the one-hearted path, the twins remain at their stations and keep the world stable. However, if humanity becomes two-hearted, the natural vibrations of the earth will be disrupted by greed and war. And this will cause the twins to abandon their posts, which will make the earth wobble and the poles shift. This is the Great Purification, a literal pole shift that causes the oceans to move and the land to be cleansed by wind and water. Also, maybe relevant, I read that the twins' father is the sun, like S-U-N. And you'll remember the Mayan hero twins became the moon and the sun, so that's an interesting connection. There's also actually a ball game reference in the Hopi story as well, because the twins are often depicted playing a game similar to what got the Mayan hero twins in trouble. The hero twins are also credited with slaying monsters that made the earth uninhabitable for humans in the early days of the Fourth World. There was a giant who was apparently running around killing and eating people. And that sounds oddly similar to the story of the Nephilim from the Bible. But the description of this thing sounded more like Bowser and less like Bigfoot. There were monster raptors that would nest on high peaks and swoop down and snatch people up. The twins killed the parents and turned the chicks into owls and eagles so that they would stop attacking people. I'm wondering if the raptors were some kind of dragon or a winged serpent of some sort, maybe like a thunderbird or Mothman, I don't know. There was also a giant Loch Ness monster type of serpent that caused the Great Flood because someone killed its children. Apparently, the twins spared its life because it promised to stay in rivers and lakes to make sure that they never ran dry. So now I'm imagining Nessie going through portals in lakes all over the world. Okay, friends, there's one more prophecy I want to talk about, and it's one that the Maya, Hopi, and many other indigenous nations all shared. It's the story of the eagle and the condor. The prophecy itself is based on the concept of Pachacutis, which are 500-year cycles of time. The eagle represents the masculine, the mind, and industrialization, while the condor signifies the feminine, the heart, and intuition. Another common dichotomy that we see consistently: modern technology versus a spiritual connection to the earth. And as the story goes, a little over 500 years ago, which would have been right around the time of the Spanish conquest, The paths of the eagle and the condor split, with the eagle representing the north and the condor representing the south. The prophecy warned that the eagle would become so powerful that it would nearly drive the condor to extinction. This symbolizes colonization again and the destruction of indigenous wisdom in favor of materialism and technology. But the prophecy also states that after 500 years of separation, the eagle and condor would fly together in the same sky, wing to wing, and humanity would find its balance again. The eagle, modern society, will realize that it has lost its way and is essentially destroying the planet. So it'll seek the wisdom and spiritual healing of the condor as a way to live in harmony with nature. The condor will not only share its ancient knowledge, but also learn to use the eagle's technology to protect the earth and its people. If they're able to successfully reunite, as the prophecy suggests, then a new level of human consciousness will be born using technology to be good stewards of the land and using logic to manifest the visions of the heart. If the legend is true, that means that we're currently in the window of time between the fourth and fifth Pachacutis, where the eagle and condor will reunite. And actually, as of 2026, eagles and condors are both nesting in the Pacific Northwest for the first time in over a century, bringing the California condor back from the brink of extinction. Not a coincidence during the Great Awakening. It's really interesting to see how so many different cultures over time have explained the same concept of the fourth world, and how right now, around this time, literally right now, we would be moving into the fifth world. It feels accurate, doesn't it? For the past several years, especially, it's felt like humanity is being wound tighter and tighter, or being pulled further and further apart. And now we're at the point where the band is about to snap. The other day, I was reading something online about how, as of April 17th, 2026, there are 7 celestial bodies in Aries. It's rare enough for there to be 7 in Aries at once. The last time was in like 1821. But this specific 7, one of which happens to be the moon starting a new lunar cycle, I don't think it's ever happened, not in our timeline of history. And look, I'm not saying that you need to believe in or even care about astrology. That's not the point. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I do want to say this specific planetary alignment represents new beginnings, a transformation. So buckle down on that inner work, because a big reset could be coming, and your proximity to God is going to determine how smoothly that transition goes for you personally. That means that we need to focus on our individual relationships with God or the divine or source. I don't care what you call him or it, but it's time to lock in. Stop ignoring what he's trying to tell us. I told a friend the other day that God was basically thumping them in the forehead and saying, how many different ways do I have to deliver this message to you before you get it? And that's how I view this too. How many different religious texts or prophecies or astrological delineations have to say the exact same thing before we finally wake up and realize that God has been trying to tell us something? Don't you think he's smart enough to know that humans would have different belief systems? So doesn't it make sense that he would put the same message in a bunch of different proverbial bottles to make sure that everyone can receive it in the way that makes the most sense to them as an individual or as a culture? This is not a time for division. Stop trying to force someone to believe in your version of God, because whatever you believe, he's bigger than that anyway. Right now, it is much more important that we simply inspire people to believe and pursue that path however they feel guided to. So be kind, show your light. What a time to be alive. Yay. Oh my gosh. 2 episodes down. All these prophecies just reading humanity to absolute filth is crazy. But hey, come here. I know that it feels scary and uncertain. Trust me. I lost myself in that feeling of impending doom, and things got pretty dark over here. When you're ultra sensitive to the energy of the world around you, this nonstop tension is so overwhelming and depleting. But don't lose yourself in it, friends. The more we wake up and reconnect with each other, the faster we'll get to the good part. We all just have to lower our bows and move towards the middle a little at a time. We'll be all right. We're all here, and that honestly feels huge to me, because it means that we all want the same thing, which is ultimately peace and harmony. Next time, I'm thinking of talking about the prophecy of the popes, but to be totally honest with you, I already wrote that episode before the president started picking a fight with Pope Leo and posted that picture of himself as Jesus. So I need to revisit how I plan to end that episode, or maybe do a different topic altogether. We'll see. I don't know. And don't forget that if you're a listener and not a watcher, there's an Instagram post with the important images I used today. So make sure you're subscribed and following the podcast on all the things. Now, go outside, pet a dog, compliment a stranger, and please just rapture and chill.